fam? Good morning. Eric here for Sunday, February 1st. Finally made it through the first month of 2026. This is episode 30, and this is going to kind of close the chapter that I've kind of been on for a while. It's definitely run its course, and I appreciate you all, checking in and seeing on it. But moving on to kind of bigger and better things after this episode. So what I want to kind of touch on in closing is attraction isn't enough, right? At one point in my life, attraction felt like everything. If the connection was strong, I thought the relationship was real. This episode isn't about the moment I realized attraction isn't enough. So, obviously attraction, you can be physically attracted to somebody, you can be emotionally attracted to somebody. And, whether you fall in love with them for their looks or for their mind, that's your choice. And I found that, throughout my relationships, it's either been, oh, they've been smart, or they're pretty, or they have a nice body, or they're kind. I haven't really dove into more significant stuff, which I will, get into later. But let's break this down. How does attraction convince us? Right? We think intensity equals compatibility, chemistry equals safety, longing equals love, desire equals connection, and the emotional pull equals alignment. Now, with naming all of those things, they can all come hot and heavy, right? And it's all in how you meet your person. Whether you meet them at a bar, whether you meet them at the grocery store, meet them at the mall, meet them at at the Cumberland Farms, like meet them at the store, meet them at the bowling alley, meet them online, whatever it is, like, words, in the sense of it, we're not looking at that in the beginning. We're looking at physical attributes and, how do we vibe together, and those are all important, don't get me wrong. However, those aren't the mainstays of building, what the true relationship is. So a key line here is attraction tells you how someone makes you feel, not how they'll treat you. And as I was saying, is you may see somebody, you're gonna lock eyes, you're her type, he's your type, so on and so forth. So we're first attracted physically to somebody. And like, obviously, if you're doing online dating, you're talking first, and yes, you can see pictures, but you're trying to find out, excuse me, commonalities between both of you, just to see, what you guys have in common at first. And those are all good. Those, don't get me wrong, they're all viable. However, that's not what you really need to look for, because attraction can feel very convincing. And here's the psychology simply behind it is when you're attracted to somebody, it activates, it gets your dopamine levels spiking. It's the novelty, you create fantasies, the anticipation, the emotional adrenaline that you get from that person. And I'm guilty of it 100%. I'm not saying that I'm not. But one thing I want to really make clear here, what it doesn't activate, all right, is consistency, emotional regulation, communication skills, accountability, and values. So, again, that's something that you will eventually find out, and those are the questions to have, to ask early on and to watch for early on is, if for some reason, and I'm not saying put them through tests, because I disagree with testing somebody just because, I think that's unfair. But I think you really just have to be mindful of your surroundings and seeing if everything matches up. Are they are their actions following their words? Or the words following their actions, however you want to phrase it. Are they being consistent? Or is it, you hear from them one day for a whole day, then you don't hear from them for a day or two, right? So especially in this day and age, like you have to, we're tied to our phones, and whether you say you are or you're not, I don't care. I don't believe you. But, excuse me. Your phone is on you all day long, whether you're playing games, doom scrolling, whatever it is. You're on your phone. Um, but how do they emotionally regulate? You know, do they are they one to kind of not face the music? They shut down and any sort of adversity that comes along, whether it's small or large, or they won't talk it out with you and come to find a resolution for it. Those are huge, and I realize that because it's tied to your nervous system, is if you haven't fully healed or you haven't fully examined all of your, inner issues, then you shouldn't be in a relationship. It's that simple. Because that person is not going to help you or fix you. You have to be able to help and fix yourself before you can get into that relationship, because otherwise you're just going to blame that person for stuff that they did not have a part in whatsoever, and that isn't fair. And which kind of leads me towards communication skills. Just making sure that they're open and honest with you, about everything, not just one thing, about anything. You should be an open book to your partner, no matter what, and you should be telling them the truth, and that's one thing that I'm a firm believer in, is telling the truth and getting it out there and making sure that they know what's going on so they don't feel surprised. And again, it's if you start to see, kind of chinks in the armor or, inconsistency, then you have to call it out to them and say, hey, listen, what's the deal? And see if they hold themselves accountable. If they hold themselves accountable, you have something real. If they don't, they try to deflect, they try and push it back on you, they try and reword it, whatever it is, then guess what? That is something that you cannot and should not take. I don't care who they are. Is know your self-worth, know your value. So again, I kind of touched on this. Is attraction is a nervous system response, not a relationship blueprint. So when you start a new relationship, yes, attraction is there. Whether it's how they look, how they smell, how they dress, how they walk, how they talk, whatever it is, that's what it is. But you have to get to, you have to, from the jump, is, keep your eye on to see if they're being consistent. To make sure that you ask that question, hey, how do you handle conflict? And see what sort of response that they give you. And if it's a pretty detailed response, then they can handle it like an adult. But if it's a vague response, or it's something, well, I don't pay attention to it, then guess what? That's only going to come back and hurt you later on down the line. So here's kind of one thing, the cost of choosing attraction over safety. So here's the thing, is when you prioritize attraction, you overlook red flags. And I did that, and we've all done it. I'm pretty positive. Is you can't ignore the red flags when dealing with your partner. It's something that has to be called out. It's something that has to be addressed. And another thing, another cost of choosing attraction over safety is inconsistency, how you tolerate it, and how you explain bad behavior, how you rationalize instability, how you wait for a change, and most importantly is you stay longer than you should. So kind of going back, previously what I just said is excuse me, this all kind of lines up um, to what I was saying earlier, is if they're being inconsistent with communication, with meetups, with phone calls, with texts, like that's something that needs to be called out. You have to know your worth. You have to know, you have to have that self-respect because you deserve that. You are not a welcome mat. I don't care who the person is. If you here's the thing, is you can choose to be whatever you want. If you want to be that welcome mat, be the goddamn welcome mat. But here's the thing, is you don't want to be that welcome mat. You don't want to have people stepping all over you, wiping their feet all over you. Excuse me. I'm exhausted, by the way. Sorry. It's been a long weekend. Great weekend, but long, so I'm a little tired this morning. So I mean, explaining bad behavior. You shouldn't have to explain bad behavior. The behavior speaks for itself. No need to try and over-explain something where you have the proof right in front of you. And kind of making excuses for why they can't do this or why they can't do that. And in this last relationship, there was a lot of that. And I didn't realize, obviously I didn't realize at the time, I didn't notice that red flag. However, it was there. But again, this is something of a learning lesson for me that I'm going to take into future relationships. Sorry. Here's another thing, is waiting for them to change. Now, you can listen to them, you can hear it, you can say it, but for you to sit there and have to wait on something, especially them to change, ultimately you're delaying the inevitable. Because they may never change. They may just say that to kind of keep you at bay. Oh, you know what? I gave my spiel. I'll be good for another couple of weeks before it gets brought up again. No. So, definitely keep that in mind. And which turns into the next point of is staying longer than you should, regardless of how you feel. You have to understand is that you can love somebody, but you can also let them go because it's just not right. And you have to be strong with that because you shouldn't have to stay in something that isn't beneficial. And I mean beneficial in kind of the best way possible. I'm not saying for anything on a negative aspect, but just for yourself. So, kind of a key line to this is attraction kept me interested in dynamics, right, that weren't actually safe for me. And with those above, that's exactly what happens, is you're attracted to that. So here's when, I experienced the shift for what I look for now. Right, rather than still keeping attraction over there, because yes, you have to be attracted to your partner in some way, shape, or form, 100%. I'm not saying that you don't have to be, but you have to be, because otherwise it's just like you're gonna be upset. So looking at it like this, is what I look for now. It's not necessarily about looks, but it's more about emotional availability. It's more about calm communication. Can we talk like adults, whether we agree or disagree on a topic? Predictability. you know. Mutual effort, self-awareness. That one kind of should have been number one, but obviously I didn't think of it right there. But that's a big one. Is you may get somebody that says they're crazy, but they know they're crazy, and they know that it's not something that you did, right? So, if they can pony up to that and admit that, then guess what? They're in a good space in my opinion. Nervous system safety. This kind of goes back to how they handle conflict. You know, um, what is their nervous system like? Did they experience a lot of trauma? I mean, if they did, I hate to say it. The next question is have they healed? What have they done to heal? Is more in line of a better question. What have you done to heal? And if you said, "Oh, I want to talk to my girlfriends," yeah, you're not healed. But if you say you went and got professional help, then you can be pretty confident in having them be healed. But again, that's your judgment to look into and to find out. Lastly is emotional responsibility. So, with that being said, it's, um, you know, I'm not responsible for your emotions in a sense. Like, of course, I'm not going to be, I can't be a dick all the time. But when it comes to like internal things of that I've had, excuse me, nothing to do with, guess what? That that particular area is for you to work on and not blame me for it because I happen to trigger something in you, causing an effect, which I had no clue on. So, um, one good line out of this is, I'm not looking for sparks anymore. I'm looking for stability. And somebody who can show me that they're stable and that they're willing and that they're going to put in as much effort as I do. I don't want to say I do, but if they're matching efforts, right, to the best of their abilities, then that's something you can hang your hat on. Oops. And, that is what kind of creates the emotional safety within yourself. So now I'm going to go into what that feels like from my perspective. It means no anxiety after conversations, no guessing where I stand, right? Because we should all know where we stand every single day. There's no emotional whiplash, that push-pull dynamic, or hot and cold. You're hot one minute, you're cold the next, you know. And again, that comes with self-awareness of not only yourself, but your partner. There's no need to perform and kind of, put on that brave face, you know, is you have to be truthful and honest with your partner on this. And it feels good because here's the thing is being truthful and honest, you don't have to remember things because it's truthful, right? There's no fear of being yourself. You shouldn't have to adapt or adjust or whatever. Like that person, your partner should take you for who you are. And if you sit there and it kind of goes back to the performance aspect, is if you sit there and try and play a role, guess what? You have to continue to play that role. But that's where it can get you into trouble because again, it's a lie, right? Because you have to remember what you did at each stage, right? Rather than just living your life as is, as you are, as you were born and how you grew up. So, and then last but not least is no constant mental loops. So here's the thing. Is emotional safety at first is boring. Yeah, it's boring. Until you realize it's peaceful. Because we as a society most of us are used to chaos. We're used to the negative aspect. And when that negative aspect isn't there, then you're just like, oh, I'm kind of boring. Like, why am I bored right now? And, you have to shift your mindset. So, kind of back to, attraction. What happens? It pulls you in fast, right? Oof, that person's hot. Okay. But then it fades without substance. It excites the mind. It gets you all running. And it activates a fantasy. Now, when I kind of written these bullet points down and it said activate, and I came up with that sort of fantasy line, it's true, because you start seeing a future with that person almost immediately. I mean, some may take longer than others, of course, but let's be real here. You start seeing, oh, can't wait for them to, meet my parents, meet my family, meet my friends. Like, oh, we're gonna be taking trips to Disney World, or we're gonna be taking trips cross country, or we're gonna be taking trips up north, and whatever it is, like you're planning that in your head, and you cannot start by fantasizing about it, because that is gonna suck you in, and it's gonna hurt when things don't work out. But now let's go over alignment. Alignment builds slowly. It deepens over time. It's supposed to calm your body. And most importantly, it supports growth, both physically, mentally, and spiritually. And that's, I've kind of looked towards when I do look, I should say, it's, how do they want to grow? Do they want to grow as an individual, or do they want to grow as a couple, or they want to do both, or they want to do none? And that's where you have to use your common sense and use what is available to you, to see if that's going to be a right fit. If the growth isn't there, then there's no need to be in the relationship. Why you want to be a simp? Because you're not going anywhere. You're pouring into a cup with holes. It'll never be full. So kind of keep that in mind. So as I want to, coming to the end of this segment and how I'm going to end this episode, before I go into my closing reflection, this has been a wild ride, and I have spoken to professionals about this and people about this, simply because I wanted to see a variety of different takes, and whether I was on the right path, whether I was off. And I was 100% honest with myself throughout this, and I asked questions that didn't necessarily, it pertained to me, but it wasn't about me. And that's how I was able to get my answers, and to be able to move through this, because this was extremely difficult for me, not gonna lie. So the end is, I didn't stop believing in connection. I'll always believe in connection, 100%. One thing I stopped believing was that chemistry was enough to build a life, and it's not. Attraction still matters. Like I said, you have to be attracted to your partner in one way, shape, or form, right? But it's just not the foundation anymore. You have to build something solid. So, in closing, attraction may open the door, but emotional safety is what makes me stay. And that is what I'm going to be using for my next relationship. So, yeah, this episode, this was, as I was writing this out, this kind of hit me in different ways because it was, a learning lesson of, kind of changing everything and looking at it from a different vantage point. And that's what was tough, was looking at it from a different vantage point. But now that I see it from that vantage point, I am extremely happy that it's from that vantage point because those are more important to me now than they ever were. But hopefully, today is going to be a little bit warmer. We've gone through some serious, serious cold weather here, single digits all week long. It was crazy. But I am excited. I got a CrossFit competition coming up in 2 weeks. Well, 2 weeks from yesterday. And it's going to be good. It's on Valentine's Day. And it's fun because it's going to be able to challenge, myself because I haven't been in a comp in probably 3 years. And fortunately, it's at my home gym. And, it's co-ed. So, my partner and I, we worked on one of the workouts and, just kind of give like a dry run where we did like half of each of the movements and just to see where our strengths, where our weaknesses are, how our transitions were. And it was good. It was fun, so that's why I'm a little more tired today, this morning. But it's supposed to get a little bit warmer. Yeah, yesterday we did get up to about 20 degrees at one point, so that was nice. Felt like a goddamn heat wave, because we've been at five. I think on Wednesday, may have been Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday last week. It was -1 when I was driving to work. I'm like, come on, man. It's just crazy. But a lot of big things, coming up in February. I have to say, I finished my growth track for my spiritual side, and I had a very long conversation with, for lack of a better term, mentor. He's an elder at the church, and I was just straight with him because I haven't gone because one of the last services that we had, I was really kind of turned off by the guest speaker that they had. And so we're working to kind of, move past that and see where it goes. And I have to say, I'm very thankful for him and how he's taken his time, with that. I see the passion that he has and the care that he has for this church and what his mission is. And, it's really kind of a cool thing. So more to come on that. But I mean, I'm still trying to read the Bible, and it puts me to sleep, man. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's the fact that it's a difficult read, and what happens with me is if something's difficult when reading, I go to bed. So it's a great way to knock me out, 100%. But I'm hoping that he gave me some suggestions, so I'm going to put those to use in the upcoming weeks. But and today I'm not going because I have some stuff that I've been neglecting, and I need to get to doing those today. So that's really going to be kind of my day. But I am going to the gym. I got to do some sort of movement. I am sore from yesterday's double workouts, so I'll be moving today, get that in, and then start prepping for the upcoming week. But as always, I appreciate you guys for tuning in, checking out my video. I hope you enjoyed this series because this was a good series for me, and my progression from start to finish is it gets better each and every day. So with that being said, I want you to drink your water, get your food, go to the gym, go to church, hang out with friends, call somebody today, somebody who I haven't talked to in a while, and see how they're doing, because I'm sure they'll appreciate it. But till then, we'll see you next week. Have a great day.